Okay, it's rare that people pronounce my surname correctly. It's just like juice and tea. Easy.
I do think I checked because you were at the IEC conference when it took place in Surrey, and you won the best presentation in the sustainability track. It was a really memorable presentation, so I'm absolutely thrilled that you are here with us today. So for people who don't know Matteo, Matteo is a sustainability scientist and an innovator. Oh, I'm going to press record. Oh, come on, Brent. Oh, are you recording already, Steve? Yeah, it's already recording. Okay. So Matteo is a sustainability scientist and innovator working to promote sustainable and healthy societies and regenerate our relationship with nature. He's authored more than 20 scientific publications exploring factors that contribute to sustainable relationships with nature. So today he's going to be talking to us about what it means to do business in an ecologically real world and the importance of ecocentric awareness for enterprise education and enterprise educators. So without further ado, Matteo, thank you so much for being here with us. For the audience, if you've got questions, if you can hold on to them by putting them in the chat, and then when Matteo, you finish your presentation, whenever that is, we can come back to those questions. All right, take it away.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Catherine, and thanks everybody at the Enterprise Education UK for participating, but also for inviting me. I am going to talk a bit about ecocentric learning today. I'm going to talk a bit about how the education for entrepreneurship can be adapted to a realistic and ecologically real world. And this is what I'm interested in doing in my research and my innovation. I really focus on trying to understand how we can move from an anthropocentric myth to an ecocentric reality, an anthropocentric view of our position in nature, where we believe to be the apex of creation, where we believe that that humans are disconnected from the biospheric dynamics, and they're disconnected from the ecosystem, disconnected from the ecology, and they can progress and they can develop as societies in isolation from the ecosystem and the planet. And this what I call the anthropocentric myth. And I'm trying to understand how to move towards an ecocentric reality, an ecocentric reality where we are part of all life that exists on the planet, and we're just an animal that evolved and is currently evolving. And I want to give you a bit more depth into what this ecocentric reality really is for me. And I'm trying to take a big picture here, okay? I think this is probably the biggest picture I could find. I think that our ecocentric reality is that we live on a rock, and it is in the middle of actual nothing. And in the last 4 billion years, this little rock in space got moldy. Developed bacteria, developed algae, developed trees, developed animals and ecosystems and rivers. And it created kind of a bubble around this layer that you see is this bubble, is the atmosphere, is the biosphere, is everything that is alive, everything that is alive on this rock. And we are part of this. We are part of this biosphere. We are descendants of this mold. It turns out that if you let mold talk to each other for 4 billion years, they end up like making religions of bitcoins and Twitter. Just matter of time. But we evolved from this mold, and this mold is what made and is currently maintaining the atmosphere, the right level of oxygen in the atmosphere, the right climatic conditions for agriculture, the right climatic conditions for developing society, and we are part of this biosphere. And I really hope that you all agree with this story. We evolve from this mode. We are still part somehow this mode, and the mode that surrounds us ultimately is what provides us all the services, the clean air, the clean water, the food that we need in order to survive and thrive as a society. Sometimes I'm going to say, hopefully, obvious things, but I'm just trying to make a point here. Now, I want to make another point, because I hope we agree on this ecological reality, okay? And I want to test you. So I want you to choose a diagram that best describe your relationship with nature. Now, I cannot see your images because most of your cameras are turned off, but you can raise your hand when I hover over the diagram. So please choose the diagram that best describe your relationship with nature. Is it this? This one? This one? This one? This one? Yes. Yeah? Is it this one? Now, this is a method that exists in environmental psychology to measure your relationship with nature, your empathy towards nature. Most of you are here in these three diagrams. I've done this method, probably a game, like hundreds of times, that everybody is here. Everybody is always in this area. And now I have a question for you. What is this part of you that is in nature? We agree that we are kind of we are molded with shoes. What is this? Our body is just roughly 45% human cells. 55% of the cells that compose the human body are bacteria and viruses that they uses our body for shelter, and we use them to digest food and stay healthy. So we are not even half human ourselves. We're kind of more of a zoo for bacteria than more than anything else. So how do we justify this? How do we justify our person not being nature? We kind of agree on our ecological reality, kind of disagree here. It seems to be incoherent. This is because this understanding of nature is embedded in our culture. There is an ecological reality, and then there is a social reality made out of stories. And this is, by definition, our culture. The definition of nature that you have used to answer my question is this one, given by the Oxford Dictionary. The phenomena of the physical world collectively, plants, animals, the landscape, and other features and products of the earth, as opposed to humans or human creations. By definition, we are separated from nature. This is the definition that you used to answer my question 10 seconds ago. We're all, and we all use the same definition. We all agree on this definition. We all agree that there is a separation the same way that you showed me that there is a separation to be made between you and nature. And every time we use this word, we perpetuate this separation. This is a cultural assumption. So there is an ecological reality that we are part of an evolutionary process, and there is a social reality that is built on stories that somehow ended up separating ourselves from nature. In the same way that we believe in God, we believe in countries, believe in flags, we believe and we attribute value, to pieces of paper that we exchange as money. We also develop a story about our positionality in the biosphere, on the planet, that is at the foundation of human development. But I believe, and with me, many others in sustainability science, that this story, the fact that we are not nature, that we are separated, this anthropocentric myth, is the causes of our existential threat to humanity, is the cause of the climate crisis, the cause of the ecological crisis. And I want to give you a bit more context about this. Because being culture, we can trace where it's coming from. And I want to give you a bit, just a tiny bit of history about this understanding, this perception of nature as separated from humans and nature as a machinery. And this idea has been the dominant idea of the Industrial Revolution. Descartes himself was a firm believer that animals could not reason, animals did not feel pain, animals behaved like mechanical robots. And because of it, because only humans were conscious, because only humans had minds and soul, only humans could learn, only humans could have language, only humans deserved compassion and empathy. Animals and all other ecological and natural resources could therefore be used and abused to satisfy human pleasures because they were equivalent to machines. We didn't have to develop any form of emotional of attachment or respect towards nature because this was a lifeless machine. And a lifeless machine that wasn't really contributed to human prosperity or human well-being. And since, I want to say since then, but exponentially more since the Industrial Revolution, we have been managing Earth and the biosphere as a lifeless machine from which we are separated. We have managed Earth and nature as a capital of resources to use, to which we have no dependence and no obligations. But we know from our ecological reality is that if nature around us was dead, we also would be dead. We aren't responsible for the level of oxygen in the atmosphere, for cleaning water, having food, or water. Now, this story, which is the foundation of the Industrial Revolution, is still very much alive today. This is the anthropocentric myth at the basis of the Anthropocene and at the basis of the consequences of the Anthropocene. And I want to give you an insight about the consequences of this story, drawing a parallelism here. Now, stay with me a second, but if we all agree that one race is superior to another, we inevitably create racist systems. We have racist economic incentives, we have racist laws, we have racist behaviors, we have racist behaviors because we have racist assumptions. There is no possibility of an harmonious relationship between races if we believe that one race is superior to another. But from the little game that I showed you before, we all agree that there is one species superior to other species. This is the essence of the anthropological, of the anthropocentric myth. We can discuss the price of land, we can discuss the price of animals' life, we can discuss the price of entire ecosystems because they're commodities, they're objects. And this is the ecological, again, the ecological myth that is driving the climate and biodiversity crisis. And the whole economic and political systems are based on this assumption. We can own land in the same way we could own slaves. And I believe this is a crucial existential threat because there is no possibility of developing an harmonious relationship between species, between humans and the rest of life, if we have this assumption, if we believe this anthropocentric myth. Now, in academia, I mean, the last several decades, in several disciplines, actually, from economy to ecology, several disciplines that became the foundation of sustainability science, they've been telling us that this is not true. And here I just want to show you two different models of how we can conceive sustainable development. I think this is something that probably most of you, the one on the left, the model of weak sustainability, something that most of you have been familiar with. It's the model of three pillars. Sustainable development exists at the intersection of the economic system, biosphere, and social system. And in this model, there is a possibility to translate any form of ecological capital to any form of economic capital to any form of social capital, etc., etc., etc. In the last 30 years, 30, 40 years, probably more, since the deep ecology in the 1970s, really, so maybe even 50, there is a new model to understand sustainable development, which is based on the model of strong sustainability. And this model of strong sustainability basically states that any form of sustainable development can exist in a sustainable economic system, but that sustainable development can only exist in a healthy social system, which can only exist in a healthy biosphere. It tells you that there are boundaries of a healthy biosphere, and outside these boundaries, there is no possibility of having a civilization, and surely no possibility of having an economic system. It will tell you, this model, this ontology, that a stable and predictable biosphere is the foundation for a stable and predictable social system, which is a foundation for a stable and predictable economic system. It will also imply that there is no possibility of an infinite economic growth, because there are boundaries, there are social and ecological boundaries, planetary boundaries that cannot be surpassed. And I'm pretty sure you have seen this. You've seen this model translating one way or another in donut economics, or in a variety of different economic models. But the essence is the ecocentrism behind this. And this is also the reason why some of you might have seen the Sustainable Development Goals drawn like this, rather than as a table of goals. This is because without SDG 13, SDG 14, without life on land, without life below water, there is no possibility to reach zero hunger. There is no possibility to have affordable and clean energy. There's no possibility for quality education. There's no ecological foundation for a society. So there is no ecological foundation for economic growth or economic prosperity. And I think this model that I just showed you, it is the essence of what became ecological economics. And I want to say something about ecological economics, because some of you might think that this is just the aggregation of two separate disciplines. And I think it's almost nonsensical. Like, if we look at the etymology of the words economy and the etymology of the word ecology, the economy is house management. And ecology, using the same etymology, is house study. So economy is managing the house without knowing what it is. There is no possibility of separating the economy from ecology. The ecology is the foundation of the management of resources. And I think this is having an ecocentric mindset is really like the starting point of not only a sustainable economy, but also a realistic form of enterprise. And I'm going to share with you this. I mean, this is by no means finished, and by no means axioms or truth, but I've been trying to list some principles for ecocentric entrepreneurship and that we could all agree on. And I think the first one that I listed here is that we are part of the biosphere. Our ecological reality states that we are part of this. We are on this rock. We are evolving on this rock and with this rock and from this rock. So I don't think there is a need to separate our path of evolution and path of prosperity and well-being from the ecological reality of the biosphere. And the second principle, which stems from this understanding, is that human progress can happen only within a healthy biosphere. The biosphere provides the foundation for a healthy social system, a healthy economic system. So only within a healthy biosphere we can have human progress. Now, let's go back to this shift, because this is what I told you I'm particularly interested in. How do we move from A to B, from anthropo to eco, from a myth to some form of reality? And at the beginning, when I started doing this process some time ago, I tried to understand what science had been saying about this. What is this connection with nature that I have evaluated on you with the tool before, with the method before? What is this human-nature connection that we should be promoting to understand this reality and appreciate and treasure this reality? And there's a lot being written in academia about human-nature connection. This is an interdisciplinary literature review, a systematic literature review on everything that is being written between 1984 and 2015 on human-nature connection, nature relatedness, etc., etc., etc. And what we're seeing is that there are different interpretations of connection with nature according to which set of disciplines we address. So human-nature connection can be contributed, can be envisioned as an attribute of the mind, that you think of environmental psychology, or as an experience, as a natural, meaningful experience, think of anthropology, or as an attachment to a specific place, to a specific local ecosystem, to a specific land. And here you can think of human geographers, and you can think of sociologists. The issue being here is that after this review, we didn't know how to connect the evidence of these publications. Also, I realized that not only, despite this systematic literature review being representative of several disciplines, it's not just academia who has knowledge about what human-nature connection is. So I have done a review of international organizations that, sorry, I'm trying to put the comments away. So I've reviewed the 200 international organizations about what connecting people with nature means, what it is, and how do we promote it. And based on these publications, based on a theoretical review that sets sustainability within a relational theory, based on a series of other papers that I've written before and after, what we've seen is that the ecocentric relationship with nature, this idea that we are part of nature, can be seen as a set of competences that we can learn. It's something that can be part of education, that can be learned together with the social and ecological system that surrounds us. It's not only a psychological, it's not only like an abstract connection, a psychological connection to an abstract form of nature, but is the competence that we develop with the mind and the body together with the social community and the ecological community that surrounds us. And out of this work, a progression of these competences came to be. Now, I think we all know what being from nature and living from nature means. We're all doing that. We are considering nature as a pool of resources to extract from and to satisfy our temporary excesses. But we need to learn to be in nature, and then we need to start developing certain competencies to act with nature. And only after we can develop the competence to be for nature and then as nature, act as nature. Now, for each of these phases, there are competencies developed to basically become an ecological citizen, to become an active and harmonious entity in the web of life, really. The first competence are comfort in nature and curiosity. And then when we start to learn how to interact with nature, we need to develop this interaction, the capacity to interact with nature. We need to develop some form of ecological literacy, ties with specific landscape and natural places, and then develop some form of epiphanies with nature, some very, very strong formative memories. When we act for nature, we need to develop empathy, the capacity to feel emotions of non-human beings. And then together with our community, we can start to become stewards and leaders for nature. This is the last phase, being as nature, is probably the one that is still a bit, I don't like to call it abstract really, but is distant from Western culture. We have been helped by an indigenous organization to understand what being nature means, what being part of an ecological legacy means, what being one with nature means, and how we can develop this as a competence so we can learn to do this. Now, all this work in the last year, I've worked with the Surrey Wildlife Trust to create a guide aimed to teachers, to educators, to nature leaders, to people who are interested in promoting an ecocentric relationship with nature and learning how to become nature, how to be nature. And so we have developed a guide to create a kind of a benchmark to both design meaningful nature experiences, but also to evaluate them and to try to tap into the needs of different organizations and the needs of educators, the needs of schools and educational institutions. Now, all of this work and the scientific background is on the website, BeNature.info. We have done the physical launch already, but we will have a virtual launch the 15th of July. So you can register for that if you are interested. In the future, we will also develop an evaluation toolkit. So on this website, on BeNature.info, we will develop the possibility for practitioners and professionals and organizations to access evaluation tools to validate the impact of their nature-based activities, or their activities on people's relationship with nature, on personal development, and on well-being. This organization will have the possibility to see the results online, and at the same time contribute to development of a pool of knowledge that can be national and internationally valuable. This is what I've done so far, and I want to leave you with another thought, with another I would call it like a thought, with some food for thoughts. Because I believe that the purpose, I'm gonna have a drink of water, I'm sorry. I think the purpose of ecocentric learning, regardless of how it's pursued, is to be able to recognize, to treasure, and to promote the value that the biosphere has on our personal, social, or economic development. So that's why I believe that even ecocentric learning can be the foundation, or should be the foundation, for sustainable enterprising, for enterprising in general. And I want to discuss this idea that the generation of value in an ecocentric perspective is a biospheric zero-sum game. And I want to tell you what this means. Now, last time that I spoke Enterprise Education UK, I had a slide that looked like this. At the end of my talk, I mentioned I was trying to give something practical to do, and I have mentioned that maybe we should be prioritizing people and planet before profit in the purpose of enterprises. And I thought this was a very, very uncontroversial, very obvious comment, almost superficial. But I found some disagreement on it. And I was surprised because I thought I was quoting gravity, but it turns out that half of the room, not half of the room, but some people disagreed. Particularly, yeah, I'd say old white men, the usual suspect. Nothing new, nothing surprising. And it is my understanding that companies, businesses, enterprises are meant to generate value. This value doesn't have to be towards a sustainable goal. It doesn't have to be towards a social goal. It doesn't even need to be ethically generated. So we can assume that this is just pure selfish economic profit. But still the economic system, it does not exist in isolation from what is real, from the ecological reality. We go back to the separation of economy and ecology. We go back to this anthropocentric myth. The economic value and profit doesn't appear out of nowhere. It's derived from the resources, from the environment and the social system that we have. So the generation of economic value as profit, or the generation of economic value in general, is a zero-sum game on a finite planet. The biosphere, the Earth, is a closed system in terms of resources and material. It's an open system only in terms of the energy that we receive from the sun, but anything else is just transformed. It's not created. So I think that any economic value is generated from a translation of ecological value or social value into an economic value. And none of these transformations are 100% efficient. This is the law of substitutability of capital in ecological economics. The idea that ecological capital can be transformed in ecological capital can be transformed in economic capital, and then economic capital can be retransformed in ecological capital if needed. But it's quite easy to understand. Like if we cut a forest for timber, now the economic value becomes apparent. But the loss of ecological value in terms of natural habitat, in terms of species, is ignored, is externalized. And these are the externalization. And most of the ecological value, most of the profit will come from this process of externalizing, not necessarily the process of translation. So the carbon storage, the habitat, the species habitat is just lost. And I believe this is true for any other product or services, because there is no entrepreneurial activity that is not linked to materials generated by the biosphere or by society. Anything that requires energy, it links is linked to biosphere dynamics. Anything that requires an office with buildings, with chairs, with computers, with paper is linked to biosphere dynamics. Anything that requires healthy workers is linked to clean water, air, and food, and therefore biospheric dynamics. Anything that requires any form of climatic stability is linked to biospheric dynamics. So I think that anything we can say that anything that generates economic value or capital or profit is linked to ecological capital. And I think that any entrepreneur who believes otherwise is living in this myth, is living in this anthropocentric myth, where the economy is dissociated from the ecology. And not only the entrepreneurs, but I think that any human activity, whether for profit or not, emerge, depends, and impact the biosphere because we are it. And again, I don't want to blame the businesses or the for-profit organization or the entrepreneurs. It's not their fault. It's not the fault of the person. This is a culture. This is by definition. By definition, we are separated. We live in this culture, but we are responsible for transmitting and bringing forward knowledge. And this is not new knowledge. We have known this for more than 50 years, from the very first time that we tried to put together population, industrial output, food production, resource depletion, and pollution. The first time we have done that, we realized that there are limits to growth. That the economy isn't dissociated from environmental degradation. There is no decoupling of growth from environmental degradation. Here I cite an article. This is a systematic review of impact of almost 1,000 studies showing that there is no possibility of dissociating and decoupling resource use and greenhouse gas emissions from the ecological reality. Now, there are many eco-modernists who are desperately trying to find a way to rationally preserve and justify their moral right to short-term profit and maintain their privilege, maintain this anthropocentric myth, which is self-serving in the short term. But this cannot be done in an ecologically real world. And I think we all have the duty and the interest to show what entrepreneurship, what living in an ecologically real world is and means. Now, I feel like I've talked a lot about theories and assumptions and fluff. Some may say fluff. I just want to give you some good examples and end with some good examples that I found online. And I want to use the BeNature framework to do so. I want to give you some examples to start with of entrepreneurial activity, businesses that work in nature. Outdoor learning. Outdoor learning is growing exponentially. There's been a 200% increase from 2017, and this is because it boosts academic learning, self-esteem, reduces stress, and promotes physical and mental health. We are mold, and we like to be in the mold. So every time we are outside in a natural environment, outdoor, our brain relaxes, and we have a far easier job in understanding what we actually want to learn. Green social prescribing is growing, and if anybody's interested, I just realized that there is an outdoor office day where you can work outside on this day, which is the 11th of June. I didn't know about that, but I thought it was kind of interesting. Companies that work with nature. This is a step forward. And I think here we can consider the examples of dogs that have been used for medical detection, which perform better than PCR tests for COVID, for instance, or that they have the possibility to detect lung, prostate, and breast cancer, comparable to tests that have been developed, in academia by the medical sciences. There is a long history of communal survival, of interacting with nature. So there are examples of Brazilian fishermen with fish, with bottlenose dolphins, or honey hunting in certain tribes of Africa that use their health. Basically, they have a communal, a mutual interaction with a honeybird guide. The honeybird guide guides the people to the honey. The people collect the honey, and then the bird eats the larvae and eats what's left over. There is a big growing economic activity on regenerative farming, and we can see we started to see big players moving into this space as well. Being for nature, these are activities, these are business activities that act in the favor of nature. There's been business for nature, more than 100 partners. We have the very iconic example of Patagonia, who has pledged 1% of their sales since 1985, and since 2022, they have transferred ownership of Patagonia to a non-for-profit, and all the future profits will go to fight climate and ecological collapse. We have an example of Sound Right, which was a UN initiative in 2024, which made nature paid artists with royalties. Yes, we got business for nature exactly as well. We have Faith for Nature, where we have it's a cosmetic company in the UK that have had legal rights to nature. So nature is recognized as a stakeholder with voting rights. We have Ecosia. There are a lot of different positive examples, I would say, of companies that can act for nature. And this is probably just a thought at the moment, but I like to put it out there and try to understand if a business can be seen as nature, can be understood as a living entity, like any other organism on this planet, an entity that is born, that it grows and reach maturity, and it creates value and produces value into a social or ecological system, and then is allowed to die, where it no longer serves a role, when the resources that it uses are no longer valuable for the context in which is set up to be. This is a very famous adaptive cycle called adaptive cycle in ecology that governs the dynamics of an ecosystem. So there is always a phase of growth, a phase of conservation, and then a phase of release of these resources when the ecosystem or the social system isn't fit for purpose anymore. And then there is a reorganization phase. And I really wonder why. Well, it seems to me that we're building businesses as machines designed to scale up endlessly to maximize profit without really pay attention of the purpose that they have. So I would say that in this situation, I mean, profit, if we would think as businesses, as living entities, profit would become a signal for the maturity of this company and not necessarily the ultimate goal or the purpose of a business. And this is what I wanted to tell you. I wanted to give you an idea, set some possible principles for ecocentric entrepreneurship. And now I've mentioned that we have a website called BeNature, and I really like this to be the place where we can mainstream ecocentric learning. Ecocentric learning in schools, in nature conservation, in education, in business. And I think I've started this work, and I started to produce some material that will be There is a guide, there will be a toolkit, there will be a play for schools. But I think that in order to build it more, I will need help and support. I will give a class on ecocentric leadership, a lesson at the Sustainable Leadership for Business module course organized by the CIFAD, which is part of the United Nations Institute for Training and Research. But we want to develop a whole module, a whole course on ecocentric leadership. So if you are interested, I'm really like seeking funding or sponsorship or institutional support to continue this work in the next year and a half, I would say. And the goal is really to deepen the research foundation of what ecocentric enterprising could be, support maybe a module at UNITAR on ecocentric business leadership, maybe build like realistic and strong partnership, or facilitate the shift towards ecocentric entrepreneurship in businesses, and work in partnership with existing business to do so. And in general, just bring these ideas to larger audiences. I think we know how to build extractive businesses. We know how to build businesses within the anthropocentric myth. I think we've done really good as a society. We've been really good with that, but I don't think we have the same capacity and ability to build businesses that can truly belong to a living world. I think we are still learning. That. So if this vision matters to you, if this mission matters to you, just get in contact with me, and I'll be happy to talk more about it. You can contact and send me an email here. And these are my details. And I hope this was not too obvious. I just hope this was not. This was just some food for thought, and potentially the beginning of a future collaboration. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks a lot.
That was fantastic, Matteo, and really, really interesting. So there's clapping, and then there's a hand that's gone up straight away. So if you've got other questions, post them in the chat. But is it Unai? Would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Can I just interject? Would people prefer me to stop the recording for the questions, or leave the recording on? Obviously, anyone asking a question will therefore be on the recording if I leave it on.
Yeah, let's stop the recording, Steve, and we've got the formal presentation there. Unai put their hand up by accident. So Ruth is asking a really